has caused probably the most significant impact to the aviation sector. With the world going into a lockdown and airlines being grounded internationally, the sector has come to a standstill. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the problems, challenges, and the way forward for aviation. Joining me on the program today are Sunil Arora, President, Air Cargo Agents Association of India; Sanat Kaul, former Joint Secretary, Ministry of Civil Aviation; and Harshvardhan, aviation expert. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. All right, so let me begin the program first with you, Mr. Kaul. Let's first try and analyze the situation and try and understand, what the civil aviation industry is going through, what is the problem, and what is the kind of impact that the lockdown has had really as far as the sector is concerned.
The aviation sector, firstly, internationally is crucial. And domestically, it is getting more and more important. It's a major source of transportation of both passengers. Cargo comes next, but passengers, and it provides a huge number of employment, direct employment and indirect employment. So the lockdown of aviation sector is making things very difficult for the Indian economy. But more so, it is the most controlled sector. It is controlled because all bookings have to be done properly with names, etc. The entry into a terminal, the security check, everything is totally controlled. And therefore, if there is a issue of opening of the transport sector, I think aviation sector is easier to implement than railways or road transport. So I feel that the lockdown itself is creating a crisis in the economy. It's required, but it's creating an economic crisis, and it is now high time that there is a sense of relief given to the sector. The aviation sector in particular, in my view, can be easily opened up slowly and slowly. Now, for example, today Emirates is in Dubai, is opening up the airlines and making sure that everybody who enters the aircraft is tested negative before it. They're doing a blood test. In India, as far as International Foundation of Aviation, Aerospace and Drones is concerned, we've already written our views to the PMO and to the Ministry of Civil Aviation that the sector should be opened up with testing. So testing should be one requisite, an additional requisite before you enter the plane, that you are tested negative. Now, what kind of test? There are blood tests, there are those other tests. I'm not a technical person. In any case, this will not be decided by the aviation industry. It will be decided by the medical people. But you make sure that the passengers who are embarking the plane have enough immunity that they do not go and infect anybody else. Besides that, all other precautions like no food, no drinks to be served, face mask to be compulsory throughout the journey, and anything else which goes along with it is most welcome. But the sector should open up now to start flights connecting, especially those areas which are not red zones. And even those red zones, you can have controlled connectivity. So this is how we feel that unless this sector is allowed to work, and it is the easiest and most controlled sector, the other sectors should follow thereafter. And this will bring up the economy. This will bring up the economy and also ensure that the virus is not transmitted that easily. So the aviation, in fact, as I would say, was the first and the most important medium of transfer. From Wuhan, it was through aviation that everything went all over the world, and practically all the countries of the world are now impacted by that. But this aviation sector is also the most controlled sector. If you control it well, you can make sure that it is not getting transmitted. So that's how I like to make my opening statement. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So Harshvardhan, as far as the airlines are concerned, before I take the issue of cargo up with Sunil Arora, how badly have the airlines in India been impacted as a result of these lockdowns? How long can they stay afloat, and will they be able to stay afloat going down in the future, because their balance sheets have been a problem in the recent past?
Well, I think, Sabha, the first thing we must understand that it is perhaps the first of its kind crisis which aviation industry is facing ever since inception. You know, if you look at 100 years of history of aviation, this is the first time aviation industry is undergoing this kind of situation. And one of the worst thing is that this is a worldwide phenomena. You know, earlier anytime there were disruption, they were sectoral, you know, limited to particular geographical location or the territories. This is the first time you have a worldwide phenomena. And one of the worst thing or the kind of charge against this industry is that it became the carrier of this virus to various parts of the world. Now, this is a general overview, but you have to look at the elements of the industry, and the main and the first focal point is the airlines, because airlines are the one which are running the industry. Everything else is a support organization to this. Now, in the airlines industry, if you look at the world airlines, you are looking at something like 10 lakh crore losses in terms of revenue. And then you are looking at not only 10 lakh crore losses in terms of revenue, you are looking at physical losses of almost 4 lakh crores due to this epidemic. Out of which the Indian share, I would reckon, would be anywhere between 30,000 to 40,000 crores, which is something like 40% of the total revenue of this industry. You know, that is where we are suffering the maximum. The basic problem is that in this situation, the airlines, particularly the Indian Airlines, they were all running in on the forward sales. You know, the viability was very low. You cannot just, I mean, you know, you have to look at not only COVID situation, you have to look at the situation immediately before COVID. The Indian economy was in a very bad situation. The airlines industry was suffering heavily even before COVID. You know, we literally for the first time in 10 years, 15 years, we had no growth in terms of number of passengers because the industry was suffering. The second issue is that the cost. We work on the most cost expensive environment. You know, the cost of operations in India are the highest. Even when the world airlines, I mean, the petroleum prices are just around hovering around $20, we are still paying the price which were applicable, something around $110 of petroleum prices. You know, that is where, which is the main component of this industry in terms of operation. But right now the question is the cash flow. The survival is cash flow. Whoever has the capacity to sustain the longest is the survive. You know, we are in a free for all situation. And I must also tell you, just grounding the fleet does not mean the costs have stopped. You know, in order to maintain the fleet serviceable so that you can make it operational, then you have the people who have been logistically displaced. You are roughly, the industry is directly impacting something like 20 lakh people. And then for every one single employment of an industry, of the aviation industry, we are the carrier. You know, we generate employment. You go into the hospitality sector, you go into the tourism sector. For every one employment, direct employment in this industry, you are creating something like 20, 25 indirect employments. So, you know, with this industry, you are looking at something like 1.5 crore people who are getting affected in terms of employment. The people are not getting jobs, people are being laid off. The other situation is that with all that, when you want to resume, you know, after such a massive disruption, when you want to resume, you have to realize the passenger confidence is at its lowest ebb.
Correct.
The screening would be maximum. People would want to firstly being repaid of what they have deposited. You know, and according to me, all the Indian operators owe something like 20,000 crores in terms of forward sales revenue, which has to be remitted. And I don't think any of the operator has that capacity in terms of repayment. Then, you know, there are certain operational expenses like leases, airport charges, fuel payment. Now, you require cash, hard-earned cash. You know, right now, government has not come out with any policy. And I do not believe that government of India has the capacity to bring any major substantial relief to these operators because, you know, they have a huge deficit. They have a huge challenge at their hand of the rest of the country. The poorest have to get the first benefit. There are a lot of competing demand for it. So accepting there's a lot of competing demand for the resources. So accepting a limited relief and more as a kind of a motivational support, I don't think government of India would be able to do much about it. So I think, even after you revive the industry, when you open up, you are looking at something like 6 to 9 months of gestation to bring just the fleet. And
Okay.
at the moment, the demand situation, you are looking at something, even if you are looking at 6 months from now scenario, you are looking at an excess of about 300 aircraft because you cannot deploy all the aircraft in one go.
Absolutely. So we'll
Information
talk about,
traffic.
what is to be done later on, and what is the way forward a little ahead in the program. Let me bring in Mr. Sunil Arora into the picture now. So Sunil Arora, let's look at the subsector of cargo. Now, of course, we've discussed passenger over the last 10 minutes or so, and we know that it's very important, but even cargo is equally important because, the movement of goods as well at a time like this is extremely crucial. So, what's happening on that front?
Okay, thank you, Harsh. Firstly, giving a compliment to cargo, that cargo is important. But as such, it has always been felt that the flights are operated for passengers, but whereas the low-lying cargo in the belly plays an important role and a very integral part of the profitability for any airline to exist worldwide. And this has been established with facts and figures. So I will be speaking on cargo because I represent an association as president of Air Cargo Agents Association of India. Firstly, I would like to say that yes, this pandemic has disturbed, or in fact, the entire scenario in the exit industry is now gone for a toss.
Hmm. Okay, we seem
Become
to.
exporters and importers to send in their goods and bring into this country. Now, the most important thing is that we'll have to look at the macro scenario after this lockdown is over, because the effects have been significant. We are, as India, are placed at such a geographical location that we have always have lots of cargo moving in from the east into India, and our export market has been Europe and US primarily. So here the question is that everything has come to standstill, but as far as cargo is concerned, with the initiatives and with the very supportive role of our Ministry of Civil Aviation and Ministry of Commerce, we have been able to move at least two essential commodities like pharma and agri products significantly across the world. A lot of freighter airlines, domestic freighter airlines, are supporting us, and now is the time. Unfortunately, our Indian national airline is not a freighter airline, but now is the time which has been felt. Initially, there was a challenge. But with now with the relaxed term, no with manpower to the airports and ports, other commodities can also move in from from our airports, other than pharma and perishable. Pharmaceuticals has always been a core center. We import a lot of APIs, a lot of pharmaceutical products from Far East, and are one of the biggest exporters in the world to the Western world. So today we are facing a lot of problems because of this pandemic, and it has to be seen in a very holistic approach. We are getting best of cooperation from our airports, from our cargo terminal operators, from the ministries. Airlines are operating, but they have limitations. We have even some charter flights are going. Movement within the country is a big challenge, and the freight forwarding community as such is facing a big challenging task at the moment. And since the exporters, importers, manufacturers, they all shut down, and the freight forwarding community is going through a very tough time at the moment, even financially, I would say. We would request the government through your channel to support the freight forwarding industry, because we collect freight from our exim partners and then remit the same freight to the airlines. And at this moment, it has become very, very difficult for the industry to collect freight, like it is happening on the travel side also. And
Sure.
we see a very difficult time ahead. But better planning after the lockdown is over, maybe we bounce back very quickly, and I'm sure and optimistic about that.
Okay, better planning and looking forward now. Let's take that aspect up. Mr. Kaur, what needs to be done going forward? Because very clearly, like pointed out by the other panelists as well, it's not going to be business as usual. There are certainly going to be some measures that need to be taken. Some people are talking about leaving the middle seat vacant, or leaving, an alternate row vacant as well. So these kind of things, do you see that happening going forward?
Well, frankly, in my view, what we have considered with my colleagues is that this middle seat business is not going to work. Firstly, the distance required is much more than just the middle seat. So there has to be a more clear system of going, and we have discussed that, and we have come to the conclusion that individual testing is important. Whatever test is said, it will be at the passenger's cost. Passenger will go with a negative test, whatever type. There are 2 or 3 types of tests. As I said earlier, Emirates has started the blood test system. If the blood test is not good enough, we go for the swab systems. But start testing. The face mask would be compulsory. No food or drinks to be served on board, and therefore, air conditioning issues have to be looked into, whether they, are recycling the same air or they are bringing in more fresh air. So all those things are technical issues which I don't want to discuss. But even certain airlines have said that they are bringing in more fresh air when they start now after COVID-19 than recycling the air in the aircraft. So these are issues which have to be taken into this thing. But opening of the commercial airlines and the cargo is already open up to a point, but opening of the commercial airlines for domestic only is very necessary just now. International can be seen at the second stage, because international is slightly more complicated, because the incoming passengers, we don't know where all they are coming from, what is the kind of testing that they will be required to do, what is the quality and acceptability of that testing in India. So domestic aviation should be opened up with conditions attached, and that is the only way the survival of the aviation sector, meaning both the airlines and the airports. Airports are also going through a lot of pain, and their revenues are down because there are no airlines coming in, there are no passengers there. So they're also, in fact, 2 of the biggest airports, Mumbai and Delhi, have both gone to the government. One has gone to court, one has gone to the government for negotiations. So they are having their problems. Airlines are financially in real distress.
Right.
But it's not a question of finances alone. It is a question of connectivity and opening up the strategic links to the rest of the country.
Sure.
Therefore, I think it's time to open it up, and the safest way to open it up.
Okay, all right. So talking about opening up the airlines, talking about connectivity and strategic communication as well, Harshvardhan, what are some aspects that we need to keep in mind?
Initially you could put any kind of restrictions for 2-3 months, because that is a kind of a protected movement. But as you know, you cannot put this kind of restriction on a permanent basis, because this is mass transportation. So we need to look at the situation. The first thing is that we need to have a very clear perception. Like, when you go into solutions like keep the middle seat vacant, etc., you have to realize that you are incurring a cost for the whole aircraft, not for 2/3 of the capacity. As it is, the costs are very high. The first thing the government has to do is that it has to start creating some kind of quarantine corridor, like taking it to what Mr. Paul said, that basically you have to look at a limited opening of certain sectors with certain restrictions or certain impositions of ground rules on the passengers, that you have to get yourself properly tested for ABC or test, whatever the medical fraternity decides. And then slowly, you have to start assisting the operator in terms of the initial cash flow. Government has to keep that in mind, because all these operators would virtually have no cash flow. So there has to be a liberal dose of cash flow to revive themselves. Say you are looking at 45 days of operating costs as a cash flow. I think that kind of a liberal dose of infusion has to be made, and the only way to do it is by government. No other agency will be able to provide. However, I must bring 2 very quick observations to your notice, that in this COVID scenario, India has virtually proved to the world that we are among the best, if not the best. Air India's role has been lauded world over. And if you remember on your channel, I have always defended, perhaps the only person who defended, the remaining in the government sector. Today, Air India has proved that it is no longer a commercial organization, it is a strategic organization for the state, and I think I compliment Air India for it. And they would be perhaps the first operator which will actually break the they would break the situation where they would start operating, because they are literally better organized than most other operators because they are partially operating.
Right.
And the second area, like Mr. Arora said, that the first influx of volume will come from cargo, not from passengers, because it is much easier to screen the cargo. And as soon as the economies open up, the need for products would be much higher because there is everywhere there is supply chain vacuum. So it will be the cargo. So I think government has to focus on cargo and limited operators and limited quarantine sectors. That
Sure.
is the best way forward.
Okay, all right. And, Sunil Arora, as far as cash flow is concerned, as far as the government's role is concerned, considering the kind of situation we are in, considering how grave the situation is, how much and to what extent can the government handhold in situations like this?
Yeah, this is very important. Once this pandemic is over, as Mr. Harshvardhan said, there is a demand there will be a steep demand for parts of the world, and which is going to be which very effectively. The first thing what we expect from the government is that there has to be some freight rate control system. Although there is an open sky policy, but this exorbitant rate increases or freight rate increase of 4x, 3x will add on to the product, whether it is import or it is export, and our products worldwide will become unviable, which is a very dire concern that I see. We will have to have some sort of a freight rate control, deploy more freighter capacity, bring in aircrafts even if they are not able to move passengers. We need to bring in the similar those passenger flights carrying only cargo, and now cargo on in the passenger cabin has also been permitted. DGCA is giving permission to a lot of airlines to fly only cargo flights. So I think freight rate control is one thing. Second is that we need to work on increased throughput from our airports and seaports. The more we are able to execute, the more we are able to deliver cargo to these airlines through these airports is going to be the key success. And definitely from the government, we expect a relaxed working environment at all these ports. Of course, keeping in norms because they are the regulators. Customs are the regulators. We have seen fuller support from customs till now.
All right, time now to get closing comments from all my guests with the best way forward, starting first with you, Mr. Paul.
Well, the best way forward is that, we have already cut down or increased the time of doubling, it's from 3 days to 6 days of the deaths. So it's a great achievement because that itself is a great indicator that things are coming into control. Now, along with that, the revival of the economy is crucial, and revival of the infrastructure is even more crucial. And revival of infrastructure, I'm talking mainly about aviation infrastructure, and I think aviation infrastructure, as I said, is the easiest way, a controlled way of opening. And of course, railways will take the mass passengers, the low end, and the roadways. So both of them have to be opened also. But aviation opening is essential because the entire country gets linked up, and a whole lot of things which are pending get implemented. Low-cost airlines are already competing at the lower end of the higher end of the railways, and therefore they can also meet the challenge if railways are not able to put their thing in order and provide the control of the passengers required, which I have said is possible here if we do proper testing of each passenger. And it is being implemented already in Dubai.
Okay, all right. Harshvardhan?
See, primarily government has to address the cost issue. If you bring down the cost of fuel and give the initial liquidity support to the airlines, they will revive. And I would like to draw the attention of people to 2001 situation when post 9/11 the world almost went through a similar cycle. It was the low cost, and then India has one unique advantage of the volumes. That is where we picked up, and that is what has brought Indian aviation today. So I think government has to forgive its own share of profits, and for the sake of the industry and for the sake of country as a whole.
Okay, all right. And Sunil Arora, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Yeah. Two two points that I would like the government to intervene is one is no detention demurrage at all these airports and ports, because this is a pandemic situation out of control of anyone. At present, it is at 50% for the airports, but we appeal the government should intervene and bring it to 100%. And for that, they can subsidize the cargo terminal operators or help them with financial packages. Second is more and more flights should be added, and these flights cost on these freight rate on these flights should be subsidized by the government, so that this doesn't add to the cost of the product and we are thrown out of the world market because of higher cost added